the electrics, assembling the wheels, getting it all bolted up. So, and I might, if we've got time, I might even get the body cut out, ready for preparation and painting. So join me as we continue with the build. Okay, so where we left off was, step number 19 in the instruction book. So, and here we start, the body posts are on, we've got the external armor, if you call it that, is on the car. And you can see exactly why it's going to be so robust, this little Comical Grasshopper. And it'll need to be too for what we're going to put it through. So let's continue on with the build. And straight away I can see here, it's asking me to start getting the electrics in. So I've got the electrics partially sort of connected because I needed to do it in one of the earlier steps to get the servo all aligned and straightened before we could in fact put the servo into position and the servo saver assembly together. So it's asking me to put the speed controller switch in its little mount here on the car. So I have in fact got my 9-steps little toolkit here. So I'm going to go ahead and put the switch assembly in. Excuse me while these screws are actually quite tiny and finicky, these little ones. Some of the smallest parts on the car now. Get this under there. The switch mounts up underneath, which is quite convenient in some ways. Just trying to put the washer in. Some of these steps, sometimes it feels like you actually need 3 hands to do some of these jobs. Here we go. It's all just about taking your time and using a bit of patience. Not something, unfortunately, that I have a great deal of. Get this screw done up. Like so. Get that into position, then I can start working on the second screw. It's a little bit obscured behind the suspension arm here. Gently wind it in. It's only going into plastic, so you don't want it to be too tight. Like so. I can get this one in here, better angle. Sometimes you have to be creative and going through the upper and lower rear suspension arm here. Like so. Okay, so we've got the switch in, tighten this one again. Okay, so that's our switch mounted. Now it's asking that I stick the speed controller facing this way. Okay, that's the front of it. Got the switch here. I'm going to put the speed controller like so, facing towards the back here. I'm just getting a bit of a picture how it's all going to sit in. And then we've got the receiver and the antenna mounted up here on the side next to it. Okay, so I'm going to have to put this one around here like so. Sort of get that into position, something like that. Now they have included some cable ties and that for it. Now this receiver being so small, I might actually just go ahead and mount it directly to the side of the speed controller, because there's not a lot of surface area when it's on its side to mount to the chassis. So I've got a lot more surface area on the side here, and then I'll mount the speed controller something like that. Okay, so what I've got here is a little bit of alcohol. I'll go ahead and wipe over the surfaces, make sure I haven't touched it with any of my greasy fingerprints during the build, which you can bet I did. Just got a lint-free cloth here, give it a little bit of a wipe over, wipe the surfaces down, make sure that it's all gonna stick nicely. like that. Again on the back of the receiver. Alright, a little bit of my fingers. Now we'll go ahead, got my hobby knife here, and I'll cut a few pieces of the supplied double-sided tape. And what they've done, they've actually included a really good quality Nitto brand tape, Japanese brand tape. So we're going to be sure that we have a really good stuck down ESC. Okay, so I'll start by peeling one side off, like so. Get that stuck on here. I'm going for a piece with the least amount of embossing on it to ensure that we do have the greatest amount of surface area to stick to. Just cut another short bit here. Peeling it off can sometimes be a problem when you don't have nails. Okay, go ahead and stick this piece down. Like so. Okay, so it's going to sit like there. I'll get the receiver stuck on as well. And put this around here. Try and keep it as neat as possible. I'll put one piece on the receiver. Get a rough measurement. Just cutting it with a hobby knife. And luckily we've got some left over for future jobs or repairs. Get this one on the back of the receiver. Okay, try and lift this up with the corner of the hobby knife if I can. It's coming away nice and easy. There we go. That should stick on there. No worries. Alright, I'll get this backing off if I can. Then all we'll have left to do once the wheels and so forth is on is start getting it calibrated and set up, I suppose, and bound to the radio. Not bound because we know it's already bound to the receiver, but getting the endpoints set for the speed controller. Okay, so I'm going to set this like here. Excuse me while I look over the top of the model. Try and get it nice and central, looking neat. Press it down firmly. There we go, and that should be enough to secure it. Beautiful. Then we can hook up our motor wires and start getting our wiring nice and neat. We can plug in our steering servo into channel 1. Like so. Keep the antenna out of the way the best we can. Then we'll try and get it somewhat neatened up with some cable ties. Punch this up a little bit. Like so. We don't want it to be too tight. We don't want it to pull tight, but we do want it to be nice and neat. Save the wires getting caught or tangled in anything. Simple little cable tie should help that. Now we don't want the cable tie to be tight yet. We want to make sure that it's all in. I can put another one up here. I can go ahead and tighten that up a bit. Then I'll put a second cable tie just at the back here if we can see that. and that will keep everything nice and neat and out of harm's way. Get this here, like so. And I'll be able to cut the tails of these off with my little 9-step nippers here, like so. Careful not to cut any of the wires. And I'm just double checking the blue and yellow, given the fact that these might have to be changed later anyway. I can put a cable tie in there later once I get all this other wiring finalized. This one here is the main battery connector, which will probably hang out the back here, I imagine. So yeah, so that's going to be very neat. I'll be able to tuck these down out the way for the moment. Try and keep it all neat and untangled as possible. Like so. This orange one can just sit down there for the moment. And there we go. And that's the electrics in. It hasn't asked me yet to put an antenna until just now. So I've got 2 antenna tubes to put in, and I need parts tree L13. So got L here. Cut this off with the nippers. Go ahead, I'll get some of this paper and scraps out of the way. Give myself more working area. Another L parts tree over here. Like so. And I need my antenna tube, which I've left in my box, just down here. Excuse me while I ruffle around in there. Here we go. And it's asking me to cut it in half. So we've got 30 centimeters, we'll cut it down to 15. And we can go ahead and put our antenna tube in, like so. And what makes these the re-release cars or the vintage cars is the fact that they actually have antenna tubes. The modern day receivers and antennas don't really require them. They're actually quite short, as opposed to the antennas of yesteryear where they were actually quite long. So I'm going to go ahead here, and it does up into this adjustable bracket that we've got. That's what that bracket was adjustable. Right, that makes sense now. So I can go ahead here, and I need a couple of screws and a couple of washers. So I need 3x8, and I need a washer just here. Can go ahead and assemble the antenna mount onto the car. Okay, excuse me while I look over the model. And you can see the trouble once actually getting into the screws and stuff once the car's coming together. Just locating that. Then I can go ahead and tighten up the pivot screw, like so. And I can go and put my antenna tube on. I want it to come down here. I might actually put it through this bracket. It doesn't matter if it's sticking out the end or not. We'll definitely get a signal through that thin wall tube. Like so. And there we go, nice and neat. You can see here how it's quite not quite as high as I thought it would be, but that's okay. And go ahead and put the other one on. Get the antenna mount in, and the washer, my 8mm screw. And this one is more just for aesthetics, the secondary one, because it's not actually going to have an antenna on that side. Loosen off this screw and adjust it up. There we go, like so. So there we have our antenna tube on the car. Put this second one on, and we can adjust the angles and get them sitting all nice, like so. Okay, so that is step 20 done, 19 and 20. The electrics are installed and roughly wired up. Now it's time to move on to the wheels. And these comical wheels really are a nod to the old 5-spoke or star-shaped Tamiya wheels. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut these off the parts tree. And they're just being the Grasshopper, they're a really cool green colour. I do love my green. Go ahead and cut these off. These are quite a hard plastic, these wheels, as you can imagine. And I'm sure that you could paint them or customise them any way that you see fit. This one, however, we're keeping it the wheels nice and green at this stage, posing no problem for the nippers. Now they're not a beadlock wheel, and it's not that I can see calling for any super gluing of the tyres. It's not really a high speed machine, but I can imagine that the tyres may or may not come off at one stage, so you might need a few drops of super glue, but that can always happen in the future. Whereas the traditional Tamiya wheels, they were sort of like a beadlock. They were a 3-piece wheel that actually clamped together and held the tyres on the wheels in that way. It's the same size wheels front and rear, comically oversized fronts to give it that cool look. Okay, so we've got one of these ones here. Put the dish in there, and that's looking super. Did I put that on the right way? Just trying to line up with the picture. That's better. So I've got a bit of a dish in the wheel, and we can see that the hex is sitting flat, sitting really nice. Great looking wheel. So I'll go ahead and piece the others together. Like I said, all 4 being the same. Giving a nice big, quite a big wheel for such a small car. And then we need 20 screws, 5 in each wheel, to screw them together. So I actually picked these out just a second ago. We'll go ahead and get them screwed in. Now this is something that I wouldn't do with an electric screwdriver or anything, and there's no need, they're not really that taut. I'm going to do them up in a sort of a pattern across the screw face, the surface area, to make sure that it's coming down nice and neat. And these are a 2.6 by 8mm screw, so they're not overly thick. They're a little bit thinner than the rest of the 3mm screws in the car. So I'm just doing them up nice and gently, getting all the surfaces to set. Parts like this on the build can be quite monotonous, but I suppose that's part of the fun. It can be quite therapeutic to do these sorts of things. Okay, now that I've got it in there and sitting flat, I just give that a little physical check with my finger, make sure it's all sitting nice. Then I'll work my way across in a star pattern, make sure that the face is all pulled in. And it's not, I wanted to say that it's not holding anything structural, but it is actually holding the hex drive onto the wheel. So you can see here we've got the hex drive, which is encased in the front rim, and that's what screws to the wheel assembly. Lovely, so that's one done. 3 to go. Bear with me as we get these ones done. First screw in, get it started, pull it down. Second one. And so forth around the wheel. And what I really like about these 9-steps toolkits is the knurling on the handle. It's quite A, it's comfortable in your hand, and B, it's really quite it's quite grippy. As it grips to the, falls to the hand easy, and it's sort of grippy on your hand without it being uncomfortably rough. They really have got the texture right in my books. Just working my way around now, getting it all done. Okay, halfway there. That's 2 done. And so far in this build now, like I said at every step, that it has gone really well, which is no surprise from Tamiya. They are known for great quality injection molding, and engineering that goes in behind it, you know, to make sure that the stuff fits nice. The design and the finish is really good, and that it practically falls together. You know, the main problem I think with this would be over tightening or using the wrong screw in the wrong place. Like if I was to put the 3mm screws in the place of these ones, and then realized I'd made a mistake and then tried to put the 2.6 ones in, they just wouldn't take up. So things like that, you've just got to be careful on the build and make sure that you are using the scales on the pages, putting the right screws in the right places to avoid any take aparts or redos, or any damage to the model as it's coming together. Okay, last one now. Then I can get these tyres mounted and get them on the car and actually get it looking like a car. Got this one here. Even with my big fat fingers, still going together pretty easily. I can imagine that a child or a junior doing this would find this even easier. Oops, didn't get that one in. Get it located. There we go, last screw going in. Okay, then we'll get them, go around in a star fashion, get it all nipped up. And these are screws that you'd probably want to check after you've run the car a couple of batteries, just to make sure that they're not, everything's still seated nicely. There we go. That is 4 wheels assembled. That is step 21. I'm going to turn the page now. So now it's a matter of putting on the tyres. We've got front tyres and rear tyres. So we can go ahead and do that. And I do love these tyres. This is a nod to the Super Gripper rear tyre and the Smoothie front tyre. and they're beautifully embossed with the Tamiya logo. Here we can see on the sidewall. They would look really cool if you took the time to detail it and put them together. And the rear tyres are actually directional, so I'm just having a look at that while the front tyres not so much. They're going together quite easily. A little bit of stretching, but nothing too. Just want to get it on. Get it seated into the bead. We can hear there that there's holes in the wheel to let the air escape, because you don't want that to be blocked. Fantastic. That's the front one done. Looks great. Do the other front one. Start by putting one bead in, moving it across bit by bit, pushing on the rear bead. Shouldn't need any tools or anything. You really wouldn't want to get a screwdriver or anything involved in this if you could help it, because you just risk damaging the wheel or putting a hole in your tyre. Bit of gentle manipulation just by hand should be fine. Yep. Okay, and that's the front ones. How cool do they look? They are super cool. Okay, now the directional of these ones, we can see the tread pointing forward. We're now asking that. So we've got left, which is this one, and the right one's going to be facing that way. I can just line that up and make sure before I go on all the way that they are. Yep, we can see how both the treads are pointing the same way, so I can go ahead and finish that off. Get that on. Rear tyres are actually easier to put on than the front tyre. That's a little bit more oversized for the wheel. Sitting on the bead really nicely. Air's getting out even better. So it looks backwards when you're doing it. Just the other side. Get it all nice and seated. Sitting nice and flush. And at this point, I don't really see the need for any glue. So we've got the rears, which are going to go on like here. We'll look overhead, and the front can go on either left or right. There's no wheel bearings or anything in the front wheels. They're all contained within the steering hub. Fantastic. So that is step 22 taken care of. So now we can get them on. So let's have a look on our parts tree for where we might find the wheel hexes. So we've already put wheel bearings in situ. Just got to find these hexes. So they are B14 front and rear. So where is my B parts tree? Here they are. Both the same width, front and rear. Same part number on the tree, making it nice and easy. Get these. Again, the nippers working a treat. This is made from the hard plastic again. Making sure that there's no flashing left, or else the wheel might not sit properly on the hub. A little bit of a dag here, can just cut that off. There we go. Now I need my wheel nuts. Got 4 wheel nuts. 3, 4, and my axle pins. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Don't be surprised if there's a leftover or 2. Tamiya are pretty generous with their parts most of the time. So now I can go ahead and put the wheels on. Start with the front ones. Want to make sure that the hub doesn't fall out. It can be a little bit tricky to locate the pin without it falling out. make sure you got yourself a nice work area. Get the pin in nice and square. Get the hex to slide over. Then we'll put the wheel on. Like so. And then as I do the wheel up, it should pull it into the hex and the pin and lock it all up. Got my little Tamiya 4-way wrench here. Can do up the wheels with that. Now they're nylock wheel nuts, so that'll ensure that they have less chance of rattling loose. We can go ahead and spin that. We can move it, make sure there's no play, which there isn't. Spinning nice and free. Looks like it's a bit wobbly, but that's really just the big nature of the tyre sitting on the wheel. There's nothing bent or anything. I could expect a bit of wibble wobble out of this. I think that's a technical term too, isn't it? Wibble wobble. Okay. The axle pin in. Wheel hex on. And then front wheel. Just want to be careful when you put the front wheel on that you do locate it onto the hex and don't push the axle through. Get the nut started. Like so. Get this one all done up. Again, there's no need to absolutely do them up super tight. It's only a plastic hub with the nylock on the nylock, which is a nylon insert on the thread, ensuring that it won't rattle loose. So we've got both front wheels on, starting to look more and more like a car every second. Okay, rear ones, take the body clips out that I put on assembly. Just going to line this one up. Get the hex on. Then the wheel. Make sure I put the right wheel on the right side. Yep. Then the tread facing the right way to the instruction. Go ahead and do the wheel nut up. It's here at this point that we can get a real grasp on how small the wheelbase is. And the wheel space refers to the distance from the axle to axle. And the tyres are that big that they're nearly touching each other. Gives it that real comical look. There we go. Super smooth transmission and diff on this one. Got our last wheel axle pin and hex to go on. Like so. Get the hex on. Hold it right up here. Get the wheel nut on. Then I'll double check over the wheel nuts. Make sure there's no binding and everything is going safe and secure. And wheel nuts are one of those things that you wanna. Again, you wanna check every run or three. Make sure that they're not coming loose. And the reasons that they would come loose is the plastic hex wearing or rubbing on the hub. There we go. Like so. I'm really happy with how that's come up. And there we go. A Comical Grasshopper really starting to look like a radio control car. Have a bit of look on the front camera here. It's looking really good. Really tiny wheelbase. Should ensure that it should be able to do plenty of wheel stands with its wheelie bar. Really happy with that. Okay, so that is step 23 done, and that is the wheels on for the axle. Now we come to what could be the most important part for some people, myself included, the spring-loaded bumper bar. Now this is something that's probably going to get a workout in my hands. So let's have a look here, make sure that we build this part right. Okay, That is a big piece of bumper bar. Okay, we've got this one here, and then we've got F5, the F parts tree right here. Go ahead and cut that one off. Like so. Oh, there's actually two bumper options that we can put on here. Let me read the instructions. So attach the front bumper bar. Yeah, so if we're going to go over obstacles and stuff, so they give us two. So they give us the traditional racing sort of bumper bar that was sort of used like on the frogs and the hornets of the day, the grasshoppers too. I think we'll go with that. I really like the scale look. Or if you're really concerned that you're going to hit a lot of things, we've got this big piece here. So I'm going to go ahead and actually use the little one that really harks back to the 40-year-old Tamiyas of the day, like so. So it's a really cool inclusion that they've done that couple of options there for the bumper bars. And the screws just go through. Got these big heavy duty springs here. Again, which will give it a nice bit of springiness should I come and hit anything, and act also as a little carry handle. Okay, so surely we've got some big screws to hold it all together. The BD4s, these ones right here, put them over, yep. So we can go ahead, need the bigger screwdriver for these ones I think. Get it lined up. I'll just get one or two turns on, keep it nice and even because I do have to do up against the spring pressure. It's that easy that you can even get it started by hand. Really cool. Holding from the back, do a couple of turns over here, a couple of turns on this one as we're tightening down the spring and keeping it nice and flush. Now they do up to a shoulder of the screw, so you want to know when to stop. You should be able to see through the spring to when the thread of the screw actually runs out. Like so. There's no need to force the issue. It's not going to rattle loose. And we can see here now we've got a spring loaded bumper bar. You can see how that's moving on the and revealing the screw heads like so. That should make it really cool and looks even cool. Look at the little handle, super sturdy. Okay, bumper bar on. Now to the good stuff, putting the exhaust on. Now I'm actually going to slip a battery in at this point. So for this I'm using a Tornado TRC 5000 and that's going to slip right in. So let's put the battery in. Now of course before you plug this in and go out and play with it, you want to make sure that everything's charged and the battery's fully ready to go. But like I said, I'm just taking this one out of the pack. I'm just going to put it in, put it together, ensure that the transmitter is calibrated to the Tamiya speed controller, and then we'll work onto the body. Okay, so I'll slide the battery in, just looking at my instructions, and then I need to assemble the comical exhausts onto the battery tray retainer. So here, I've been looking forward to putting these on. It's one of the coolest features of these little cars. I don't think enough RC cars have got exhausts. Okay, so I've got that one. I've got this one over here. Then I need to find the battery holder. M2. Yep, M2 right here. Fantastic. Okay, so that's going to sit like yay. Oh, these even have a locator to make sure that you've got the exhaust on nice and straight. They really have. That is the small details that makes Tamiya ahead of the rest. Okay, then I need a 3x12mm screw. and a BB4, this one here, yep, and I've got this one, nope, where is a 12mm screw? That looks like a 12mm screw. That's exactly right. Okay, get my screwdriver and we'll get this one together. Sorry, while we can get it started and then maybe I can line up the exhaust, make sure it's straight and located. It's got to come through. There we go. If I can get that started, let's have a look. Like so. Yep, get it started, can get it located before doing it up in entirety. Good. Again, we don't need to over tighten it. It's not even a structural piece, it is purely cosmetic and it looks rather cool. Get that started, rattle that in. And the battery retainer is held in by a couple of body clips, so it makes batteries changes really easy for junior RCers. Okay, so we can go ahead, put it in like so, just slides in, and then put a couple of body clips in, one in the side here, like that. We'll get one like that, and there we go, and that ensures that the battery can't fall out. We can plug this one in. So that is step 25. Now the next one is for a transponder mount, this one here, which I'm not going to include that because I'm not going to use one of those style transponders in it, even if we do take it to the racetrack, but it's cool that they've thought of that feature nonetheless. Okay, next page we're getting to the driver and the body, but what I want to do, I actually want to power it up. So let's power it up and ensure that the little Comical is going to do what we ask it to do. Okay, so make sure the switch is off, can plug the battery in, make sure that all my trims are set to neutral. Yes, I've got a jewel right there. Okay, go ahead, turn the transmitter on first, then we'll turn the car on. I'll just be lifting the back wheels while I do that. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, so I can tell straight away, and it's common that these modern radio gears need the throttle channel to be reversed, like so. And there we go. So we've got our neutral point. That's even better, the fact that I don't have to calibrate it. So I can see here I've got neutral, we've got our running speed, and we've even got full speed. I've got brakes and I've got reverse. So I've done other videos on calibrating the TBL02S, but in this instance with the FlySky GT2B, that isn't necessary. So I'm really relieved on that. So the initial wiring I did, we leave the orange wire off of the speed controller because that's to be used for brushless applications, because that speed controller can be used for censored brushless motors too. But for this one, we've just got the yellow wire hooked up to the yellow wire in the motor, the blue wire in the speed controller hooked up to the green wire, and the orange wire is just going to be left off. So that is really cool. So it is working. Now let's have a look at the steering. I'll just go overhead here now and we can have a look, make sure that the steering doesn't need to be reversed, which it doesn't. And then I can turn the jewel rate down to make sure that we're getting full steering, but not too much that we're overloading the servo saver and binding everything. There we go. So I've just had to turn that down to about 80%. And I can tell that I've got full, it's just starting to load up the servo. I can see the servo just under a little bit of torque. And that's going to be at full lock. So So that is great news. The car is ready. The next step we've got to do is cut the body out. But I think we'll leave that for another episode. I think we'll stop this episode here. So this is episode 4. And at this point we've put the electrics in, I've put the battery in, I've put some more trimmings and cosmetics on it. We've got it all wired up. We've got it calibrated and bound to our FlySky GT2B, which is part of our Tamiya Get It Going pack from Hearns. And yeah, the Comical Grasshopper is really taking shape. So thank you for watching this episode, joining with me, and look out for a future episode when we start cutting, fitting the body and getting it painted. I'm Brett from Hearns, and thanks for watching.